Well, welcome everyone. We are delighted to have you join our session today. This is the afternoon session for promoting resilience across the lifespan. And we've really been looking forward to this opportunity to share with you all some of our direct experience on this topic. I'm Lindsay Phillips. I'm the Director of External Affairs for Devereux Advanced Behavioral Health. And a little bit of background on how this panel came together will be helpful to kind of set the stage for our participants and for you to understand where our speakers' experience lies and what they will be offering today. Many of you, particularly those here in Central Florida that are joining us today, know Devereux, Florida, know us to be a continuum of services for children and families and a wide variety of services. What some of you may not know is that we have a national continuum of services. Devereux is been over a century of providing trauma-based treatment to children and families. So we have a network of services across the country that having been at Devereux for many years, am very grateful for some of the expertise and knowledge that I can gain from my colleagues like Susan. And the work that we do really is, it works because of strong collaborative relationships, which is how I came to know Dr. Wynter through our work together with the Florida Coalition for Children and the role that she has played within our system of care. And in the spirit of the rest of this entire conference, what has been really beneficial is the collaboration for each of the panels. So we wanted to bring together a couple of experts that could offer firsthand experience and do that in a collaborative way. So the first person I called, of course, when we were putting our panel together is Susan. I've learned so much really about resilience from her and her team, the Center for Resilient Children at Devereux. They've been doing this work for years, and they're putting out so much good information and resources through their website and their trainings that they do nationally. And they're really, her and her team are booked, all throughout the year. So when I called her and asked her to join us in this panel, I was so pleased that without any hesitation, she offered to do this directly herself. So I'm really proud to share Susan today with everyone. And really, you'll hear more about what the Center for Resilient Children does, but that is my place to go when I want to expand my knowledge or even refresh my knowledge about promoting resiliency. So I came to learn of the Center for Resilient Children when I was working in a different role as a behavioral clinician. And I've learned firsthand that promoting resilience really is so important through all ages. And the more that we can do that, the more we can create those strong, nurturing relationships for children that can really have a positive trajectory their whole life. And so Susan and I started talking about how this panel may look, and the work that her and her team have done initially was very focused on early childhood. So we knew we had a lot of good content to share with that age range. And more recently, the Center for Resilient Children has focused on adult caregivers of young children and put out a lot of good information about that. So she was really eager to share that context of information. And then we decided what we really need is some information to be shared with young children, school-age children and adolescents, and even young adults. So I thought of Dr. Wynter and the work that she has done, most recently with the Selfless Love Foundation, but also in some of her prior roles in the system of care. And she thankfully was very, gracious to agree to do this. And it was a double whammy because we also were considering what we really was sort of missing so far in the conference is the opportunity for the youth's voice. We felt that it was really important to hear from youth directly. And you would think, Devereux, just through our continuum of services, we're working with over 5,000 children on any given day. You would think, oh, we've got plenty of children that we could feasibly bring to the conversation. However, that, that's not always as easy as it seems. There's a lot of limitations with consents and feeling prepared and confident to do this work. And I've heard Diamond talk, and it's Dr. Wynter's work with Selfless Love and One Voice Impact that prepares youth to use their voice. And it's really powerful stuff. And so I asked if she thought Diamond would be willing to join us, and I'm so happy that she is. So between all of our panel members today, we will be able to go through the early childhood, school-age children, adolescents, which is so important, young adults, and then hear directly from that youth voice. So I'm pleased to then transition it to Susan so she can begin with her content area in early childhood and resilience in general.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I'm really, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you, especially as Lindsay just shared. This is really, even though Lindsay and I think have both probably worked at Devereux for over 20 years, we've never really worked together because Devereux is a national organization with treatment facilities and professionals all across the country. So Lindsay's down there in Florida. I'm actually up here in Pennsylvania. I'm actually the only person on this campus, except for one more person. Pennsylvania is still in serious lockdown. So I get the, honestly, I'm very grateful. I come every day to this beautiful office, and I've been at Devereux for over 20 years. And all of our work at the Center for Resilient Children is all about how do we help make sure that from that first day a baby is born, that child and all of the important adults surrounding that child have what they need to be successful. And we did a lot of research, again, over 20 years ago to figure out what could Devereux contribute to really make sure that that could happen. And even when you think about, if you know Devereux, you know we treat children with emotional behavioral problems. What if we could prevent certain emotional behavioral problems from ever developing in the first place? And so we set about that work, and I'm really excited to say that the science of resilience theory, has really been at the foundation of everything that we do here at the Center for Resilient Children. So we could go on and talk probably for days about the science of resilience, but for our purposes here today, I just want to make sure we all have a common understanding of this term. People throw it around a lot. And I just want to answer sort of some common questions about resilience. So first of all, I just want to make sure we have a shared understanding of this word. We define it as the ability to bounce back, to succeed in the face of hardship. I wish we could say that we could keep all of the risk factors and the traumas and the negative things that happen to all of us. And sadly, for some people, there's a lot more of that risk and adversity. We can't always stop it, right? There's certain things that are out of our control. But the hopeful, inspiring science of resilience says that's true, but there are a lot of things that we can do to help us adapt and even bounce back from difficult situations in life. And when you think about it, if all of us knew what these practices were, and if we could teach them to all of the people that we love in our lives, what a beautiful gift we would be giving them. And that's what we're trying to do at the Devereux Center for Resilient Children. We're trying to help people understand what resilience really is, and how each and every single one of us has the ability throughout the course of our lives, from the moment we're born, and again, we called this across the lifespan because it really does last until our whole times here, how we can sort of foster these behaviors and attitudes and surround ourselves by people who will build us up and help us be resilient. So that's the definition. I think it's such a popular topic because it offers us really a lot of hope. And for all of us right now, even pre-pandemic, I think we all knew we needed hope and reasons to sort of keep on keeping on. And when we think about where we are today with, COVID-19, with systemic racism, with the social injustices, with all of the difficulties that all of us who are working in child welfare know, if we can't keep a sense of hope and a feeling of optimism, then it's really hard to keep doing the important work that we know we have to do. And the science of resilience says there's reason to be hopeful. We can teach each other these things. We can surround each other in ways that are going to build each other up. And it doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of expertise and education. it takes a refocus. It takes a commitment to understanding the basic ways that humans can build each other up and help each other overcome difficult situations. And it's been happening for centuries. The people who study resilience can talk to us about children who have overcome, war-torn situations and some of the most difficult situations you can imagine, and how some of those children have succeeded, and the reasons that they do are things that people study, and now we can share with each other. So it's such a hopeful and inspiring topic, which is why I love to talk about it, and why I'm glad this conference is focused on it. So let me debunk a couple misconceptions that often are out there, right? Some people think, oh, Oprah was resilient. I'm not sure, she's a pretty special person. Everyone loves Oprah. So yeah, some really bad things happened to her, but isn't she special? I mean, she is special. We all love her probably. She's a universally loved person. But what helped her become a resilient person and the person we all admire today was not special. It was very ordinary. She had a teacher who she had on her show one day that she talked about. She saw me. When I had that teacher, I knew I was seen. I knew I had some special gifts, and I knew I mattered. And she still remembers that adult. And we all need to take that to heart, because for many of us, we can be that adult in the lives of children that we take care of. So there was nothing special that happened to Oprah, and there's nothing special that has to happen to us. We all have the power to learn these things and surround ourselves with people that are going to help us overcome difficult situations. And we're going to then help other people overcome their difficult situations, okay? So this is not an inherited trait. It's not something that only the lucky people get. And it's not something that is so extraordinary. My favorite resilience researcher, Ann Maston from the University of Minnesota, says that resilience is the most ordinary, magical thing you can imagine. It's not extraordinary magic, it's ordinary magic. And she has this little magical wand on the cover of her book. And so I got myself a little magical wand, because I want us all to know that we all have the power through our most ordinary actions to help each other become resilient. So no more misconceptions. Oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong button there. Okay, no more misunderstandings. So let's talk a little bit about the science, okay? It's really important for everyone to know that we don't just get up here and talk about what we think are good practices, what we think are good ideas, or what's in a popular magazines. Again, for over 60 years, scientists have been studying what helps certain people overcome and even flourish despite some of the most difficult life circumstances. What are those things? And so this is an image that helps us really understand the very basics of what that science says. This is supposed to be a scale, okay? So that little ball in the middle could move back and forth, and that would really impact the weight. We're not going to talk about the little ball right now. That's the fulcrum. That's a little bit, if you really are interested in this stuff, the Harvard Developing Child website has an awesome video that will explain the fulcrum. But at the basics here, we have risk factors in our lives and things on the other side that are called protective factors. And these bad things and these good things, these risk factors and these protective factors, happen in 3 levels: within the environments that we live in, within our families, and within ourselves as individuals, no matter how old we are. Okay, so we can let's think about the risk side. On that side, you've got these big environmental risk factors, things like COVID-19, things like poverty, things like systemic racism, things like high crime in your neighborhood. Those are big, big problems in environments. Within families, we can have mental illness and drug addiction and abuse. Those things within our families are going to start tipping this scale in the wrong direction, right? Towards a more negative, more vulnerable individual. And then there's even things within ourselves, right? If we're born prematurely, we're born with a disability, we're born with a difficult temperament, there's things within ourselves that can pose risks to us. And when that scale of life is tipped with all those risk factors, it's not uncommon to find that children would have difficult outcomes. They have difficulty making friends, they have difficult self-regulating, and they have difficulties in life, and we all know these individuals. But then there's this awesome other side of the scale, these protective factors. that are also found within our environments, our families, and within each and every single one of us. And we do not want to ignore risk factors. I don't want to ever come across as saying that the Center for Resilient Children doesn't care about risk factors. Of course we care about risk factors. Everything we can do to mitigate the risk factors in the lives of people we love and in our communities, and even the people we don't know, we should be doing. But this protective factor side doesn't get enough attention, we don't think, okay? There are things within our control that we can all do today, every day, to tip this scale towards resilience. Within the environment, every single person that's showing up to this conference, who's making a commitment to be a professional, who wants to hone their skills and do better every day, you are an environmental protective factor, okay? If you are showing up here today to get smarter about how to help people, you are an environmental protective factor. For those of you that are in the child welfare system and serving as foster parents, you are the family protective factor, right? The research is so clear. Children need that one adult who sees them, who's got their back, who loves them. There is no question those adults they get the gold star. They get the party. They are a seriously important protective factor. But then there's this really exciting category. Within ourselves, each and every one of us has habits, thoughts, perception. There's things that we can do, skills that we can teach ourselves. It's like building our muscles. We go to the gym to work out. We can build within ourselves thoughts and attitudes and habits that are going to help us overcome difficult situations. We're going to teach those to kids too. We like to think about these at the Center for Resilient Children as little umbrellas, right? And I've got my second prop here, my adorable little umbrella. We cannot always keep risk factors away. We think about risk as like the rain. There's a lot of rain that comes down in our lives. And sometimes we can't stop it, but we usually don't just sit there and stand in it. We go and figure out, how do I protect myself? How do I keep moving on? And when we surround ourselves with people who build us up, and when we teach ourselves these habits and these skills, we're tipping this scale towards a more resilient outcome. And that's what we want to do today. Each of us want to learn to be umbrellas, and we want to make sure that we're putting those umbrellas up for people around us and for ourselves too. So we'll talk about that later when we talk about adults. But I'm going to keep moving along here. So how do we do this? How do we teach these skills? How do we teach these habits? How do we do this for young children? And when do we do it? Well, when you see these adorable little pictures, I would say to you, you can never start soon enough. We know at the Devereux Center for Resilient Children from all of the research that we've followed that from the moment the baby enters this world, we can start promoting those protective factors. We can teach them how to self-regulate, how to feel loved and safe. And we can do this in the most ordinary ways, okay? So I wanna think about it like this. I've introduced this term protective factors. If nothing else, I don't care if you remember my name or anything else, I want you to remember that protective factors are really important. And we like to think about life as a journey. We're all on this journey together. And if you think about each and every one of us, we have our suitcases, okay? Or our brains, our bodies, who we are. And I would love to see if people can chat with me. I want you to chat and tell me what protective factors, what things, what either habits or skills or things need to get packed in a child's suitcase as early in life as possible for them to be successful. And I would invite Lindsay and Diamond and Dr. Wynter, anybody that wants to say, what do we need to make sure gets packed in that child's suitcase or into that child's life as early as possible as an experience? Emotional language. Thank you, Sonia. That's exactly right. Oh my gosh. It is never too early to help children understand feelings. I listened to the most beautiful podcast this weekend from David Goldman. I think it was Daniel Goldman, Emotional Intelligence. And he talked about that feelings language as early as possible, and love and hugs, the ability to pick themselves up and know that mistakes are good. We all make mistakes. We want to raise children who are not afraid to make mistakes. Thank you, Helen. Confidence, affection, support, self-confidence, you got it. All of these things, right? So some of these things were environmental protective factors. Some of these things probably, affection and support from our families. And some of these things, you guys are right on it. How do we help children have positive self-thoughts? How do we help them believe in themselves? How do we help them have emotional language? All of these things are taught, right? These are not, oh, the lucky kids that were born with the ability to do those things. Every single adult in a child's life can teach these things to a child. And that's the hopeful, inspiring message of resilience. Every single child has the capacity to be resilient. So when are we going to do this? We already said it should start from the moment they're born. So when are we going to do it? Well, at the Devereux Center for Resilient Children, again, we followed the science. And what the scientists said were there are really ordinary, basic things that you can do to promote children's attachment, right? That's first and foremost. How do we know children feel loved and supported and have that affection? How do we make sure children need to self-regulate? That's one of the hardest things to do, but we can start teaching it really, really early. And guess what? Children learn it from us. And then we also need, look at that little baby reaching for the keys. We need to make sure our babies and toddlers and preschoolers know life doesn't just happen to you. Now, when you're at that age, a lot of people are taking care of you and a lot of things are happening to you. But really early, we need them to know you've got some control over this situation. What you do matters. So I'm going to show you a couple cute videos just to sort of help you relax and enjoy and stop hearing my voice for a minute. And I want you to see the ordinary magic of the two videos I'm going to show you. There is nothing extraordinary. These things happen through the course of every single regular daily routine, and they are the perfect opportunities to promote attachment, relationships, self-regulation, and initiative. These are the three protective factors, and we have a little handout that we can show you. Lindsay's going to pop it into the chat for us that looks at behaviors you can look at that would say, well, how do I know if a child's showing attachment relationships? How do I know if they're showing self-regulation? What behaviors am I looking for that show initiative? This little handout that we have for you will help you sort of see children's behaviors in a new way. When they're engaging in regular behaviors like the ones I'm about to show you in the videos, you're going to say, oh, I think that's healthy attachment. I think that's self-regulation. I think that's initiative. So I'm going to hope my videos work okay. And we're going to watch two fun, cute little videos of babies learning these three skills, these three protective factors through ordinary interactions with adults. Here's the first one. So when you look at life, when you start looking at every daily ordinary action, if you look for resilience behaviors, resilience interactions, you see them everywhere. So this is a perfect ordinary moment. The little baby getting their nails clipped. One could go through this routine and think, I better clip their nails or they're going to scratch their face. This is just getting the job done so that they don't get a scratch on their face. This father, that is probably the least, I mean, not the least of his concerns. Of course, he wants to make sure that that happens. But really, they are that serve and return interaction between them is so beautiful, so playful. It required nothing special. It just requires us to look at life a little differently and help people see that these ordinary moments are such beautiful, beautiful moments. So I would say that one's a pretty good attachment relationship, ordinary magic activity. So now I want to show you another one, and you can guess it's one of the other protective factors, and hopefully when you see it, you're going to know which one it is. So that is initiative in action, right? I mean, that is so fun. And you might say, that's not just initiative. I mean, it clearly was initiative, right? That little boy never actually got the boot on his foot, which was clearly not the goal. He was having an awesome time playing. Whoever that adult was having an awesome time just watching this beautiful learning experience. They weren't rushed. They weren't thinking, oh, let me go get the laundry done. So this looks like a pretty safe activity. I'll just ignore this. They are in it together and just totally enjoying it. And so you might say that's healthy attachment relationships too, because it is. Because a lot of times when you've got your social and emotional or resilience lenses on, you see these interactions and you just start to see all of these different protective factors being built through these ordinary moments. So again, I love these videos because they help us see how ordinary protective factor building is and how early it can start. It's never too early to start building protective factors. And then I actually do have some cute videos of breathing with little kids, but I'm going to move us along and just say that there's a lot of research happening around the importance of all of us taking breaths and focusing on our breathing and being a little bit more present and mindful and not getting caught up in the craziness of the world. It's really not too early to start teaching kids those skills either. Again, this podcast I was listening to this weekend with Daniel Goldman, the emotional intelligence guy, was talking a lot about in preschool settings, how you can put a little stuffed animal or a little loved object on a preschooler's belly, and they watch the little stuffed animal go up and down as they breathe in and out, and start to teach these kids at very, very young ages how to start to control their breath and therefore calm themselves down, which again, these are skills when life gets a little crazy. We want to make sure they've got these skills in their suitcase of life. So we know that children's overall success includes resilience. Of course, we need to make sure they're academically prepared and have all kinds of things to be overly, successful in terms of their physical health. But here at the Devereux Center for Resilient Children, we just want to make sure when we think about the lifespan, when we think about resilience in our lifespan, we want to start really, really early. And then before you know it, you blink an eye and these little babies and preschoolers are in middle school and young adults, and we need to make sure that we're really never forgetting. You're never too young to start building these muscles, these skills, and you are never too old. So with that, I am really, really thrilled and gratified to be able to talk with Dr. Wynter and Diamond Whitley and their experiences about sort of resilience in the context of the work that they're doing. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wynter and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Our work with One Voice Impact is with current and former foster youth. And as I watched those videos that Susan shared, many of our youth, as they come to the foster care system, with histories of abuse, neglect, or abandonment, didn't develop those skills as children, didn't have that attention. And so attachment and self-regulation and initiative are areas, and I'm glad Susan said, that can be developed at any age, but sometimes they weren't developed in childhood, right? And so we see that with youth that are in foster care. If you'll go to the next slide. Thank you. But I am excited. There is one young lady who definitely has developed skills of resilience, and thanks to her incredible power of positivity, I think that's the word I'll use to introduce Diamond. We are fortunate to have Diamond join us as a One Voice Impact Communications intern. And Diamond will share a little bit about herself, but Diamond is, I'll just give you a quick intro. Diamond is 19 years old. Diamond is at University of Central Florida studying psychology, and she has big dreams, and we are standing next to her trying to make those dreams a reality to get her doctorate. And so with that, I will open it up to Diamond to share a little bit about her story.
Thank you, Dr. Wynter. I really appreciate that. I'm so sorry. In the state of Florida, it rains. So it is currently raining outside. So if any of you guys hear that, I apologize. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to start by giving you a run through of my life. I was raised by a single parent, my mother, for most of my life. And she had significant others that would come in and out of my life as a child. But for the most part, it was her on her own. And we didn't have a very close connection to our extended family due to what I believe is past trauma from being abused as a child herself. She never personally came out and told me that, but I've heard that from several sources inside of our family. So I safely assume that that was the case. She also had signs of mental illness. Of course, I can't diagnose anyone myself, but from what I've seen and heard, she exhibits signs of borderline personality disorder. And if any of you guys know that disorder, it takes a toll on not only yourself, but your personal relationships thereafter. And not only was it just factors of her own life, we were mostly in low-income neighborhoods throughout my entire lifespan. She didn't have a well-paying job. She was a CNA, so she made just enough to keep us alive. And sometimes we wouldn't have food on the table, but she tried to make it work. That also led into my social life. It was really hard to connect with friends or even have friends as we would move from place to place almost each year, and we would never really have a stable home. So it affected my ability to make personal connections with other people, but it also harmed me in the way that I couldn't make a personal connection with my own mother and my siblings and things of that sort. So it took a lot to rebuild that kind of mind frame to say, hey, people won't leave you. And now I have a great group of friends and stuff like that. But I want to really talk about how those risk factors affected me in my life. Now, with adverse childhood experiences, there are social risk factors, aka a higher probability of being pregnant as a teen, contracting sexually transmitted diseases, thank you. And then there are also physical risk factors, aka you are more likely to develop things such as cancer, heart disease, and things of that sort. But there are also developmental factors. I personally experienced them of my own that I can see. I have a lowered attention span due to the toxic stress that has been permeated in my life. And also I have a hard time with decision making. It is a very hard task for me. And also just managing stress on my own in regular life. So as most people would see a situation and be like, okay, yeah, this is stressful, but I can get through it. For me, it's like, oh, this is a stressful situation. Let me bury all of these stressful situations until that one hits me and then everything breaks down. So yes, adverse childhood experiences can really take a toll on not only your physical health and your social health, but your developmental health as well. But I am lucky enough to have a great family that I consider my family, Dr. Wynter being my surrogate mother, and people all my life that have told me that I am smart, I am capable, and even though they are not my biological family, they definitely created the person that I am today and continue to. So thank you.
And Diamond, will you just quickly share your response when you learned about ACEs? I think that was really pretty special.
So last semester in college is when I learned about ACEs, actually. I had to do an assignment. I was like, oh, this is just going to be like everything else. But my teacher made me watch a TED Talk, and I just started crying because I finally, and don't make me start crying again, guys, but it was finally a way for me to see that this was not my fault. There was nothing wrong with me. I just happened to have a life that created some more problems for me, and I am a stronger person because of that. So yeah, sorry guys, but that
crying now, Diamond.
So thank you for sharing, Diamond. And I think it's important. You see how close this hits for Diamond, if you can move the slide. But I think that's important to know, to understand who you are, right? And so knowing that it wasn't, Diamond's fault, right? And I love this. This is literally why we do the work. Absolutely. We're here for that. And so, resilience, while we know that some of these adolescents have struggled, they can overcome, right? They absolutely can overcome, and hope is really important. Let's go to the next slide. And so I wanted to share with you some factors that promote resilience among youth. And one that's really important is something, and we'll talk about this more, that One Voice Impact is really focused on, is really those caring relationships. Caring relationships, some of them have a more sort of easygoing part to them, but you'll find youth in foster care that have a lot of anger built up in them. And so, but we have to understand that and not quit on our youth. I think that's the statement I'll share with you. No matter what happens or what behaviors they share with you, stay connected, stick it out. That's what they need. They need us not to quit on them, no matter what, because it's that length. Relationships are healing, and our youth need to have long-term relationships to heal. The other piece is about avoiding risky behaviors, and so youth that don't sort of fall into those traps of substance abuse and teen pregnancy will have a better shot. Those that find ways to reduce negative effects of stress, and that those are involved in school and community-based program, really makes a difference. The young lady that we have a picture of, Diamond, you will actually get to meet her in a couple of weeks. She has just graduated last year with her master's degree in social work, is a former foster youth, and actually raised 4 of her siblings. When she turned 18, she adopted 4 of her siblings out of foster care and raised them. And so that's what I say, there is hope. Let's turn the slide. And lots of hope. And so what are some strategies that can be used to help any youth? And just like us, right? Good health is good health. It's, regular exercise, eating right, that the caffeine and the alcohol, and then really, how do we relax? And then really, and you see this picture of this young man in this photo, really helping our youth. When we talk about initiative, many of our youth that are in foster care do not have a voice or choice in their lives. They haven't had control. They haven't had the ability to, so they're sort of in this forced helplessness stage, right? And so, there was a statement I saw that said, youth begin to heal when they feel heard. And I think that's a really important statement, when they feel heard. And oftentimes youth speak, but they don't feel heard. And that's a different level of communication. Whether their perception is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. We need to listen, and listen carefully to what they're telling us, because that is their perception, that is their view, that is their history. For us to say that's not the way the system works, or that couldn't have happened that way, doesn't matter. We need to take what they've said to us and value their words, because nobody else has in their life. And so we are the link, really. So strategies to promote resilience, again, have them practice stressful situations, right? Let's go through rehearsal. Let's break things down for them. Sometimes, not just foster youth, but all youth get overwhelmed, right? When there's a lot of decisions, they get overwhelmed. And so how can we break that down step by step so they feel like they can accomplish it? There's a lot of negative self-talk going on amongst not just youth, but all of us, right? And so how do we challenge that self-talk? How do we take a break from sort of studying and working too hard? How do we use music and our friends for that? This picture, I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell you this story. Both of these folks are former foster youth the young man in the picture actually was on The Voice, one of the finalists on The Voice. And he came down for one of our events, and there was a girl I noticed that was singing along, and who knew that she had such an incredible talent. And she got up and did a duo with him, totally unexpected, but what a beautiful opportunity for us to show off her talents, which is awesome. If you'll go to the next slide. And so what is One Voice Impact? Or a youth voice movement in the state of Florida. There is the best way to build up youth is for us to give them a platform, for us to give them space to share. And what I found, interesting enough, when I was developing the slides for this presentation, and I'm so thankful to Lindsay and to Susan for letting us be a part of this. But what I realized in hindsight is the 4 areas that we really are focused on for our youth voice movement, our One Voice Impact, just happen to be all things that promote resilience. So all of those protective factors. And so no surprise, and we'll go through each one of them, but no surprise that the work that we're trying to do is trying to add protective factors to the youth that we work with. You can go to the next slide. And so one is promoting resilience. And so, is supportive adults. So this is an area that's especially important to me. I'm a mom, and I feel like I'm a mom to all the former foster youth that I come. They crawl into my heart, and I'm done. I worry about them. I think about them all the time. I'm available to them anytime. Diamond is pointing out that the person in the middle of that photo, you may notice, is myself. And this is my hodgepodge of my beautiful family, right? There's stepchildren, there's bio children, there's grandkids, and there's a former foster youth who we have taken into our family because I didn't have enough 22-year-olds. I needed one more, so now there's 4. But you know, the reason we sort of stepped in, and one thing I really believe is for all foster youth, when they turn 18, if they age out of our system, that means we in child welfare have failed them. Because our goal, one of the 3 pillars of child welfare, right, is safety, permanence, and well-being. Well, if we haven't gotten them permanence. And so at age 18, they're leaving our system without a family, without a parent. And nobody at 18 is ready to be independent, right? We're all interdependent. And that is so key for our youth. And so when they have a flat tire, who do they call? You know, my son, when he was 25 in Orlando, had a flat tire, he called me. And so I said to him, well, open your wallet, take out the AAA card that I bought you and call them, not me, right? And so, but he, like, you know what I mean? But that reduced his stress. Like he, at that moment, like a first flat tire, he didn't know what to do. I wish I had shown him how to fix the flat, but that's okay. That's why we have AAA. But but in the meantime, right, who do these youth call? And so we happened to meet Jordan when he was 22 years old, getting ready to lose his stipend, not sure, and his car was breaking down and all this other kind of things. And so we sort of stepped in and said, you know, we'll fill in the gap, and we're here for the long haul. That's something our youth don't hear. Our youth have said to us about supportive adults. When someone said, do you want a mentor? The young lady said, and how long will they be with me? And when they said, not forever, for commitment, she said, I do not need one more person with an expiration date. And that's how our youth feel, right? Is that they have a lot of relationships while they're in foster care, a lot of support while they're in foster care. But when they turn 18 or 21 or 23 and the system supports end, they have no one. And so we need to make sure, and we believe, right, we have a new initiative that we're putting out called Follow the Love. We believe that youth already have someone who they love and who loves them. And our job is to identify those folks and formalize that supportive adult connection, right? Diamond knows that I am pseudo mom always for her. I don't care if she's 30, 40, 50. Of course, she might have to help me out at that age, but but that I will always be there for them. And so I just want people to know that supportive adult relationship is such an incredible protective factor that our youth need, no matter how old they are. You can go. Diamond, I'm going to let you talk about placement stability. You sort of mentioned it in your personal life, but also how foster care sort of inhibits that resilience, that protective factor.
Yeah, so we recently did a webinar on placement stability, and I shared my placement story. I've had, I believe, 3 placements in foster care. One was with a relative caregiver, I think that's what they call them. And then the other 2 were actual foster homes. And my first placement was very traumatic because I thought I was in a place where people cared about me and I was happy and healthy. We were going through financial troubles, but the government reassured us that at some point there would be financial relief and to just keep on holding on. And then one day I got a call at 6 p.m. that said, hey, as soon as you get home, pack up your bags, you're moving. You have no say in this and there's nothing you can do. And that was one of the most traumatic moments of my life, like to this day. I had a lot of people that genuinely cared about me and I broke off a lot of connections due to that traumatic experience. And there's also other experience that I have, but that one was the one that affected me the most. And the reason why I say this is because DCF has an ability to stop this. The child welfare system has an ability to stop this by giving us youth notification that something is about to happen and also keeping us in the planning of what's going to happen. Let us have our say, our opinion, and trying their best to maintain that stable environment, even if it's just like staying in your school or staying with the services that you used to get, like your therapist, your doctor, things of that sort. Yeah, that's basically it. But just keeping stability as much as possible is vital for especially us youth in care.
So what's been so awesome and is that our youth have gotten the opportunity to of children and families and some of the things that they have spoken about and some of the recommendations they have made are actually in legislation this session. And so talk about turning it around, right? And making a difference. And so now their experiences can go to make things better for youth that, from generations to come behind them. And so that's beautiful. One of the other things that we do and we provide our youth is life skills. Now, I have to laugh. Not laugh. I mean, it's sort of a chuckle because, in child welfare, we legislate normalcy, right? And so what does it look like to be normal? And it's such an awkward situation. And so while we would love the caregivers to be able to provide, all of the life skills, like how do we learn life skills? We learn those by growing up. We learn those by our role models and watching, and being involved in, sort of, going to the grocery store. But sometimes our youth living in group homes or foster homes don't have those same sort of normal experiences that we have growing up. And so they miss out on some of the things that are going to be important for them as they grow up. And so, and also the other struggle we have in child welfare is the transition, right? The average amount of times that a child moves in foster care in Florida is very good, to be honest with you. We're a great child welfare state, but the average time is 3 times in 1,000 bed days. And I won't get into what that means, but if you at age 15 to 17, that number goes to 5 to 7 times they're moving, right? And so you think about it, she was in 3 different placements. She was in 3 different placements within 2 years. So think about how quickly youth are moving and asking that the caregivers. And so we have offered youth, we've done a pilot for Life Skills Reimagined, which is an online curriculum that provides videos and quizzes, really to help youth feel like they know what they've got, right? That they know how to manage their finances, that they know, Diamond's taking the course now. Yeah, so the youth that have gotten this just felt that they learned so much that they had missed out on. But one of the course was, by the way, there's 5 modules, And one of them is on resilience. So I know Susan and Lindsay would be happy to hear that, that we are actually teaching resilience to former foster youth or current foster youth, which I think is wonderful. And the other thing, and you don't see it, it's underneath one of these, but it's under independent living, is around healthy relationships. You know, we learn about how to have healthy relationships by watching healthy relationships. And if you've never seen one, what that looks like, we see our youth find themselves in relationships that are abusive or, you know, commitments early on with teen pregnancy. And so we need to teach them that. We need to teach them that what are the qualities that you want in a partner? Who are you? First of all, who are you? And what do you need, right? And then what are the qualities? And so they've got to figure out sort of that self-discovery piece first. And so we're trying to teach some of that. Susan, you can go to the next slide. And I'll let Diamond speak to this other work that we're doing. Oh, you're on mute.
Love this. Yeah, so basically, starting this year, OVI has launched our network of youth councils, which I am super excited about. We have 14, groups in our youth council, whether it be CBCs or just agencies that support youth in care. And we are teaching them leadership skills by offering trainings, Dale Carnegie training being one of them, which I'm super excited for it to come up in the next couple months. And we are taking our time to help them build their core teams so that we have youth that are on deck to talk about these specific issues. And we're not just having a agency that's scrambling to get the youth, you know. So yeah, it's something that I'm super excited for. My colleague John Watson, our youth initiative, our youth engagement intern, he's the one taking the reins on this, and I'm super proud of him. But yeah, thank you.
Awesome. The name of the curriculum is Life Skills Reimagined. It's a wonderful curriculum, and I hope we see it more across our state of Florida. And so speaking to the youth councils, so youth councils sound like a nice idea, right? But there's more beneath that. And really what happens with youth councils is we develop youth's leadership skills. And also in the process of doing that, you have to think about, we talk about social capital. We used to call it, you know, having a support system, right? All of that kind of stuff. And so, you know, our youth, when you move from neighborhood to neighborhood, home, school to school, foster care is you lose social capital. You lose those contacts. You lose those contacts with your family. You lose contacts with neighbors. You lose contacts with students. And so the youth councils really help sort of provide that social capital, but also that sense of belonging that our youth so desperately need. And being able to talk to other youth that have gone through similar experiences. There's this beautiful bond that happens amongst youth that have gone through foster care together. And if you've ever watched it, it warms my heart. And so when they get on a call together, and you probably won't see this in typical teens and early young adults, but they have this beautiful way of wanting to support one another and help one another. I have never seen youth that are so there for one another, prop each other up, and youth that probably need it themselves, right? But they can give more than they have, right? It is the most beautiful thing. And so, you know, I know that together, right, they form this sort of bond, and it raises up all of them, right? This sense of belonging really raises up the whole group. And that's a protective factor, right? As you can sort of pull together. And then the idea of advocating for change, right? Changing the child welfare system, changing the world. They are so excited about changing it, even though it won't impact them, it will impact youth that come behind them. And they are so committed to this work. It is incredible. And I am so honored to be able to work with them. You can go through, Susan. And so this is us, right? So this is one of our Zoom calls. We hold monthly Zoom calls. Happened to be our new Secretary of the Department of Children and Families, Siobhan Harris, was on this call with us. And it's so great that our youth are lifted up by so many folks around our state to make a difference. And so as I wrap today and turn it back to Susan and Lindsay, I'm going to ask a question as Susan did. While many of you don't necessarily work in the child welfare system, what is something that you could do today to let a youth know that they matter? What is something that you personally, if you run across someone at the store, if you have a youth in your life, what could you say to them that might make a difference in how they feel about themselves or how they feel about the world? I'm waiting for some chats.
Before we transition, I just want to personally thank all of you guys for all the kind words that you have said to me from sharing my story. Thank you guys so much, and I appreciate you being here.
Come in now. I see you. I hear you. I'm here for you. That is beautiful. Look someone in the eye and notice them, say something kind and positive. Talking to them, not at them. That is so great. Smile and say hello. Yes, listen to them if they were opening up to you. Thank you so much. I believe all of us can be youth advocates, youth champions. And so have that genuine, authentic conversation. I will share with you that youth know when you're being inauthentic and insincere. They can smell it, I'm telling you. And so if you are there just for a paycheck, they are not going to open up to you. So the only way for them to open up to you is for you to be vulnerable with them and be real. And so I think that that's important. But I wanted to thank you all for listening and doing the great work that you all do.
Thank you, Dr. Wynter. Thank you, Diamond. I feel like you're a little bit of a hard act to follow. I really am inspired. This was the first chance, really, we just got to know each other in collaborating for this presentation today. And I was spending some time on your website last night and now listening to you. And, not everybody talks about resilience on their websites or in terms of the work that you're doing. But as I'm listening to you and as I was on your website, this is resilience. Everything that we are talking about is the power of hope and healing and inspiration, right? Just the stories that you all just shared, foster youth supporting each other, even when you need the support yourself, you still go and support someone else. That is the power of relationships. I talked about it being built with infants, and that's ideally when it's built with that, early in life, but we're witnessing it being built, across the lifespan. It is not too late. There's always time for hope. It really is. It's wonderful to be with you. And I will say, when you asked that question, what else could we do? I was walking my dog this morning. Like I said, in Pennsylvania, we're still in masks. Outside in my community. And I walked by, I had my little puppy, and I was really far away from this group at the bus stop. And so I had my mask down and I said, I hope you have a great day at school today. And I heard the mom say, isn't it so nice to see someone smile? It's these basic, when you've got a mask on all the time, we need to make sure people know that we care, and these basic things like smiling and noticing and of course being authentic when we do it is so important. So I get to sort of carry us even further, right? We talked about babies and toddlers and preschoolers, and then we get to look at Diamond as this youth, beautiful youth person and adolescents. And now it's important for us and for Diamond and people your age too, to know that as we get older, not only is it not too late, but we have to keep practicing. Even if we started out, and I was a pretty lucky kid. I had two parents who, were able to meet my basic needs and wanted me, to have this wonderful life. It doesn't mean that I don't need resilience, because none of us are going to escape difficulties. None of us. We all have to be resilient. So if you feel like you haven't had to be resilient yet, I hate to tell you, but it's probably coming your way. And so as we get older and as we engage in the important work that we do, trying to make our communities stronger, we have to take care of ourselves. It's really hard to teach and model resilience if you are burnt out and not feeling well. And I will tell you, as someone who's pretty, looks at life in a pretty sunny way, I think that this pandemic, when we all got shut down, I noticed in myself that I was not well. I mean, I really, it was, people weren't talking about it, I guess, at the beginning, but I was like, there's something wrong. I'm worried all the time. I'm sleeping too much. And fortunately, you know, I'm in a field where it's like, ding, 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 like you aren't well. So we have to recognize, if we're going to stay in the kinds of work that we do, that it's not selfish to take care of ourselves. Okay, it is not selfish to take care of ourselves. So let's think about sort of how we're doing right now. I have a fun little activity that I want to do with you. And I wish I had told you to bring a rubber band. I don't have one quite yet, but we like to use metaphors and analogies at the Center for Resilient Children. And so one of them is sort of the pitchers and the cups. If we are adults on this call right now, we are the pitchers. We're pouring, pouring, pouring all day long. If you're like me, you might be pouring to the babies and the toddlers who in the preschool settings who need their diapers changed, who need to be fed, who need help going to the potty. You're pouring, pouring, pouring. And if you're working with older kids, you're, you know, making sure they know how to do their homework. You're making sure they get on the Zoom call properly. You're making sure they get to, you know, their therapy session. But you're basically giving, giving, giving. You're pouring, pouring, pouring from yourself. And if your pitcher is empty, it's really hard to keep giving all that they need. So we need to keep our pitchers full, which is like what we like to talk about. So I want to see how stressed out we all are. This is supposed to be a fun activity, and I wish I had told you to bring your rubber band, but I didn't. If you have one near you, you can grab it. If you don't, you can use a pretend one. You do not need a real rubber band. I apologize. Oh, Diamond's got her pretend one. Nice job, Diamond. Little kids need to learn to use their imaginations, and we do too. All right, so I'm going to do a little test with you, okay? This is your stress test, and it's supposed to be a little bit fun and silly and not totally stressful, so don't get stressed out on me. So at the very beginning, I said resilience is like a rubber band. Life pulls on us. It does. Sometimes it really pulls, and sometimes it pulls a little bit, but when we practice resilience skills, we try and get back to sort of this better normal state. So when we think about life stretching and pulling on us, I'm going to put a series of questions up on the screen. And when you see the statement, if you think that, you know what, that's true of me, then you need to put a little pull on your rubber band, okay? But don't go like this at my first one because I've got lots of statements, okay? So this is our little stress test. Here we go. Do you frequently neglect your diet? Try to do everything yourself? Blow up easily? Set unrealistic goals for yourself? Fail to see humor in situations that others find funny? Get easily irritated? Worry that you're disorganized? Keep everything inside? Neglect exercise? Get too little sleep? Put things off until later that you know should be checked off your to-do list today? Think there's only one right way to do something? Fail to build relaxation into your day? Spend time worrying about the past or the future? And race through your day? How'd you do? I didn't see it. I can only see Diamond, Dr. Wynter, and Lindsay, but I don't see any broken rubber bands, but I do see some pulled rubber bands. Many of us are sort of stretched, right? There's a lot of things that we sort of can probably reflect and think, oh, I know I should get a better night's sleep, or I know I should make time for that walk at the end of the day, or I know I should, you know, do something to build relaxation into my day. Many of us know these things, right? I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't already know. But sometimes we need friendly little reminders about the need to just really take time to stop and pause and not race through every day, which is what I feel like. I actually am doing a little bit better, but I feel like I was one of those people that raced through the day. There was a million things on the to-do list, and I always could say, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. We need to stop and just pause and take a minute to reflect and think about, how am I taking care of myself? How am I prioritizing my mental health, my physical health, my overall well-being, so I can keep doing this awesome, important work that needs to get done to help take care of whoever you're taking care of, whether it's the youth in foster care, whether it's children in preschool, whether it's the clients at Devereux, whether it's your own family. There are probably people that you're taking care of. So just like I told you, these within protective factors of initiative, self-regulation, and attachment relationships that we can teach to little babies and toddlers and preschoolers, we teach those things across the lifespan, and then we prioritize them for ourselves as adults. So the Devereux Center for Resilient Children, again, we follow the science. And when we created the tools that Lindsay was kind enough to put up in the PDF up in the chat about behaviors to look for in little guys, we went to the literature and said, what are the behaviors we should be looking at in ourselves? What do adults need to prioritize so that they're taking care of their own within protective factors, right? Because it's not just for the little ones, it's not just for the middle schoolers. We all need these within protective factors. And these 4 protective factors on your screen are mostly gonna look pretty familiar, right? Because I said babies and toddlers needs relationships, and we talked about, Diamond's experience. We all need relationships, all of us, and we do not need a football field or a Facebook field full of friends. We need a couple people in our lives who have our back. It might only be one, but we've got to have one. And this COVID-19 and the social distancing, I think, has taught us what social beings we are. We definitely need to keep physically distant to stay healthy. But in terms of social distance, we have got to stay socially connected. Relationships are critical. Initiative. We talked about the little baby who was trying to get that boot on. Well, all of us need to know what we can control too, right? That saying, God grant me the power to know what I can control and what I can't, or however it goes. We have to know what we can control and take initiative and control it. Like, we can choose to be hopeful. It's a choice. We can choose to be optimistic. We can choose to get smarter. We can choose a lot of things, and we have to have initiative to do that. Self-control, that was the other one. We called it self-regulation when they were little. We can talk about self-regulation as adults. And then there's this 4th within protective factor for adults that we didn't talk about with the little guys. The literature really brings this out as we get older. And it's really internal beliefs. When we look in the mirror, how do we feel about that person that we're looking at? Do we love them? Or do we feel lovable? It's really important that we love ourselves. We deserve it, we're worthy, and we need to know and be one of our best friends, right? We have to feel positive about ourselves. And if we don't, there's some action steps and things, behaviors and thoughts that we need to think about changing if those things aren't in place. So these are the 4 within protective factors for adults. And the Devereux Center for Resilient Children went about looking at that literature and then creating a self-reflective tool that would allow us to think about our behaviors related to these 4 within protective factor areas. So this tool, it's free. It's on our website. Lindsay's going to pop it into the chat. We encourage you to take it frequently. It's not something that you like self-assess once and think, oh, those are my skills. That must be the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life. This is something you can do on a regular basis to ask yourselves the kinds of questions that are on this tool. So under relationships, it says things like, I have good friends who support me. Is that statement almost always true of me? Is it sometimes true of me? Or is it not yet true of me? So this is not a group exercise. We're not going to fill this out together. It's not even something really that you need to be sharing with anyone. We developed it because we knew that adults who take care of others, if you are in a child serving profession, you need to know, do I have good friends who support me? And if the answer is almost always, then we need to think about prioritizing those healthy relationships in our lives. But if the answer is not yet, we've got some good practical, ordinary strategies for making sure we start to think about who are the important people in my life and how do I prioritize them. I have a mentor who shows me the way. I provide support to others. I trust my close friends. Those are sort of relationship items. Within internal beliefs, my role as a caregiver is important. Every single person listening is an important caregiver. You all are playing a role in someone's life. And if you don't appreciate that about yourself, you need to really think about why you've chosen this profession. And if someone's telling you that you're not playing an important role, you need to think about who you're surrounding yourself with, because every single one of us needs to know we play a very important role in our roles as caregivers. So there's a lot of items on here. I'm not going to go through each and every one, and they're probably not super easy to see, actually. But again, Lindsay's put it in the chat. I would love for you to think about going to our website to get a copy. And then I also want to encourage you to know that we actually wrote a book that has simple, ordinary strategies to go along with the items on the Devereux Adult Resilience Survey. So if you said, you know what, under initiative, it says, I am able to say no. Number 7 says, I am able to say no, right? Because setting limits for ourselves and not being someone who's overextended is really important. So if you said, well, that's not really true of me, then you could go to the page and say, you know what, I really don't set limits for myself. What are some of the strategies that Devereux suggests? What did the literature say? And the literature says things like, it's important to set limits. The 21st century has come to mean constantly being on the go and trying to do it all without adequate time or support. Setting limits will help you restore and maintain the balance you need to be a more emotionally healthy. Strategy number 1 might be create a 1 day at a time to-do list. And it gives you a little to-do list grid. Strategy 2 talks about rest. We talk a lot about sleep and the importance of getting enough rest. So the guide goes along with the survey. And while the survey is free and on our website, we are actually doing a drawing for this guide. So when we're done with our session at the appropriate time today, when you have time to go to the virtual exhibit hall, the Devereux folks will be there, and there's going to be a drawing for a couple of those books. So if all of this stuff sort of interests you and you'd like to learn a little bit more, we'd love for you to go check out that resource there. But let me give you another little just sort of intro to the kinds of things we're talking about. Examples of resilience building skills. What are some of the strategies that would be in this book? So I'm giving you some of my favorites, and this is one of my absolute favorites. This is a picture of a thank you note. And if I got up right now, I could tell you where I keep all my thank you notes in the office. I got a whole bunch of them. And I always have stamps. You can see, I'm not lying. Where's my little camera? I got my stamps. I've got all different kinds because I know what the science says. And I know that sending a thank you note can be really, really powerful. For me, when I need to say thank you and to let people who I love know that they're important to me, that they're a protective factor for me, they're helping me through the rain. And I will also tell you that there is an American Psychological Association 2005 published article that talks about the power of a thank you note and what it will do, not just for the receiver of the note, for you, the sender of the note. You will get positive feelings for up to 14 days. That's what the researcher said, up to 14 days. When you actually write a thank you note, you put a stamp on it and you deliver it to the mail. It's a really powerful way to feel connected and to feel good. And for many of us, and you can chat in the chat box if you write thank you notes, because it's one of my campaigns. I think that we need more handwritten thank you notes in this world. I still make my kids do it. And I will tell you, when I think about protective factors across the lifespan, my mom died about 2.5 years ago. She was my best friend in the whole world. I really didn't know how I was going to live without her. I really didn't know how my dad was going to live without her. And it was a very, very, very difficult time for us. And I practice my resilience building skills daily. I'm so grateful that I was in this field because I knew exactly what the science told me I had to do because I was falling apart, right? So you do what the science tells you to do. And there are a lot of different things. But one of the things that I will never forget was how healing it was to write thank you notes to all the people who were trying to help me. When I was sort of down and I was at the end of the day and I would think, what should I do? I would write a thank you note. And I can still remember the end of the time that I would take and the different stationery I would pick for different people. And as I look back now, 2.5 years ago, again, the power of resilience, what a healing process life really is, and how you can tell these stories now and talk about these things and feel like, I did what I was supposed to do. Some of it's instinctual, but some of it, when we know better, we do better. So some things we need to go to the research. We need to go to the websites and find out, what do we do to get through tough times? And one of my favorites is sending thank you notes. And I will tell you, because I keep referencing this podcast that I listened to on Sunday, Daniel Goldman, the emotional intelligence guy, was talking about thank yous. And he was saying that the written thank you note is the best. Telephone calls are the second best. Guess what's the worst? If you could put it in the chat, I just gave you the answer. Texting is the worst. Texting is not the best way to feel connected to people, my friends. It is not, because there's no auditory, there's no visual, there's no personal. And so if you're really, really trying to build those relationships, I would challenge you to make an old-fashioned phone call if I haven't convinced you to actually go get stamps and put a letter in the mail, which I know, Diamond, I can't wait to hear if you, I know the younger kids are probably like, yeah, that's not happening so much. Maybe it'll have a comeback, who knows? All right, so the second thing, as adults, we have to remind ourselves to set limits. If you are the person listening who wants to be the superstar, who's always the best employee, who's always going the extra mile to help everybody say, oh yes, I'll do that, oh yes, I'll do that, oh yes, I'll do that. Well, good for you, I suppose, but I would say cautionary tale. You know what? People like to be leaned on, and people you shouldn't be letting yourself be taken advantage of. And if you do not set limits for yourself, all of a sudden you might be the employee that was, rah, 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 until you're totally burnt out. So I don't feel bad anymore when people ask me to volunteer and I say, I'm sorry. You know what? My plate is full. I cannot volunteer for that activity. We all have our different limits. We need to know what our limits are. Woo! All right. Diamond's a thank you note writer. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I bet Selfless Love Foundation has some pretty awesome stationery too, from what I know about your swag.
Yeah.
That's great. So don't feel bad if you have to set limits for yourself, okay? Get a good night's sleep. That's one of the best, most ordinary, magical ways to help take care of yourself. Getting a good night's sleep, okay? So setting limits for ourselves. And then I know it's hard. I think in Florida, you guys get to do a little bit more social gathering than we do up here. We're almost there. We're getting back to this, but there's going to be a fallout. I already know. It was on the news last night. We all know it. We've got to practice our socialization skills and get back to being together. There was a news thing on the night. I couldn't stay up for it because I was setting limits for myself and going to bed by 10:30. But it was going to be on the 11 o'clock news about the skill of meeting and greeting and being with each other, and how people have sort of lost some of that this past year, and how there's some anxiety around it. So, I would just say, really think about, before this day is over, who are a couple people that you really just love to spend time with, and try and get a date on the calendar when it's safe to spend time with them. We are not meant to be by ourselves on this resilience journey. We really, that's one of the myths that I tried to debunk at the very beginning. It's not just about the habits and the skills and the attitudes that we cultivate. There's a lot of that, and we like to talk a lot about that because we have control over it. But we're not on this journey alone. We got to surround ourselves by people who make us feel good, who see our strengths and who see what positive things we bring to the table. And that's who we should be surrounding ourselves with. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who bring you down, I would say check out those relationships and make sure we don't spend too much time on those. So another thing I like to talk about when I talk about resilience is seeking out new knowledge. It's one of the items on that reflective checklist that I hope you'll maybe think about downloading. I seek out new knowledge. And one of my favorite places to go to seek out new knowledge about resilience and happiness and leading a meaningful life is the Greater Good Science Center. So it's up here on your screen. This is just a screenshot of the homepage the day that I took it. They have different images on their homepage every day because they take the most current science on how to lead meaningful, happy lives, and they translate that science for people like all of us on this phone call that are just trying to live more meaningful, purposeful lives. And they give us simple strategies. I'm on their weekly newsletter, and I actually just got, was it you, Lindsay? Someone who, I can't remember who it was. Somebody said to me, I now go to the Greater Good Science Center and I found blah, blah, blah. And I actually sent a friend of mine, or a colleague from Devereux said this morning, I need to do a training on growth mindset. Do you have any ideas where to go? I mean, they're my go-to spot. Go to the Greater Good, type in growth mindset, and boom, you've got it's all scientifically based. They're the smartest, like, intellectual researcher university people on the planet. And then they translate it for people like us who just want to know, what do I do tomorrow? What do I do right now? So when we know better, we will do better. When we know better about how to take care of ourselves, I think we'll do a better job taking care of ourselves as adults. And there's lots of great strategies on here about how to take care of the little guys too. So this is one of my plugs. Check out the Greater Good Science Center. This image actually came from the Greater Good Science Center. I think they talk a lot about gratitude. So under internal beliefs, one of the items on the Devereux Adult Resilience Survey that I hope you all will take says, I am optimistic about the future. And right now you might be like, woo, it's a little hard to be optimistic. We got a lot going on. But it is a choice. And people who have learned how to practice gratitude know that it's a choice, and know that when you can train your brain to be grateful for the smallest little things in life, you start to be more joyful. So Diamond and Dr. Wynter and Lindsay and I were all, before this even started, all of our technology was working beautifully, and we were grateful, right? We were all like, we haven't even presented yet, and we're already feeling like winners. We were grateful for small things like that, and all of us were, and we all had smiles on our faces, and we all do now. And when you learn to be grateful for those small things, it's just easier to smile and easier to be optimistic and easier to just keep on keeping on. So if you already practice any sort of gratitude exercises, I say hats off to you. One of my colleagues from Devereux taught me a really good little trick that I will share with all of you. And I did it a lot when my mom was really, really sick. And so I can say as an N of 1, it worked well for me. It's called gratitude on cue. So you find something that you do every day at the same time, right? So for some of us, it's like, I get out of bed and I brush my teeth, or I turn the coffee on. Or for me, it's I have to take my dog for a walk. She's waiting for me. She's got her eyes at me. And the first thing I do is I put the leash to the collar. And so when my mom was sick, that was my cue. As soon as the leash hit the collar, I set out. And the only thing I let my brain think about was, what am I grateful for at this moment? Nothing special. I'm grateful that I'm walking. I'm grateful that I got a good night's sleep if I did. I'd be grateful if it wasn't raining or too cold. But the point was, you train your brain to be grateful for very small things, because if you don't, guess where my brain would have gone? Right to, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this day? And, there's plenty of time for that. What's on my to-do list, all those other things. So gratitude on cue is a really, really great strategy. And Brittany, I thank you for I hope you like it. I'm passing it along. It wasn't my idea, but it's a really good one. So gratitude is a really powerful, powerful way to practice your protective factors. And then in terms of self-regulation, because we're getting towards the end, I'm going to say, everybody just sit back and take a deep breath or a big sigh. So one of the other protective factor strategies that we know is really powerful is breathing. I talked about doing it, teaching kids that breathing is their superpower when they're little guys. We can do it as adults. And again, if you already have some breathing exercise or some mindfulness things going on, I say hats off to you. And if you're sort of skeptical, I would say go to the Greater Good Science Center and check out their website and type in breathing. Because again, I'm not making this stuff up. Those are serious scientists, and they have really, really good, easy ways to get started with really just remembering the power of our breath. We all have control over it. We all forget. But think about it. When you're stressed out and all of a sudden you're like, whew, we take these sighs because our body knows it works. It helps. So there are things we can do to self-regulate, and some of them are really, really small, like practicing our breathing and taking deep breaths. So I hope we've convinced you that it is never too late to become resilient. It is a lifelong practice, lifelong skill building. Hopefully it happens in those relationships when you're really, really little. And if you're that older person in that beautiful image with those little guys, it's happening to them too. It's happening to all of us. It's a choice that we make every day to prioritize ourselves and our happiness and our purpose. And even when life's really, really tough, we do have the choice to prioritize it. It is never too late to become resilient. And for those of you that might be thinking, I wonder how her father's doing after 2.5 years. My father's one of the most resilient human beings I've ever seen. He's doing great. And a lot of it is because of the people he surrounded himself, me in particular. But he doesn't know he's practicing resilience, but he still goes to work every day because he needs a purpose. He takes care and cuts his grass every day because it gives him a sense of fulfillment. He looks out his window and says, look at the beautiful lawn that I've cut. He's 87 years old and he's practicing these things. He doesn't know they're within protective factors, but they are. We all need to be connected. We all need to have a sense of purpose. We all need to look and take pleasure in the small things, like a beautifully cut field or a bird that's visiting the bird feeder, and showing gratitude for small little things. When we can show gratitude for small little things, we will feel more joyful, I promise, and more resilient. So it's never too late to become resilient. So I hope that everybody knows the one thing that, if there was one thing I wish everybody knew, is that you've got your ordinary little magical wand, that it's those ordinary things, the most basic things that we're going to show gratitude for and that we're going to focus on. And we're going to remember that we all have the power to be resilient. It's not for those special people. It's the most ordinary, everyday things. And we all have the ability to get there. So I am going to pass it off to Lindsay, who's going to take us home and see if people have questions or what we might need to do with our last 5 minutes, Lindsay.
Well, I'm just this was, I already knew, I mean, biased opinion, I wouldn't have asked Susan and Dr. Wynter and Diamond to join us today come together if I didn't know they were going to be great. But this was helpful to me, even to take, some time to reflect. And there's always those moments that just strengthen your ability to do that and be resilient. And I would tell you, I meant when I said, when I feel like I need some information, I always go to the Center for Resilient Children. And that's exactly where I learned of the greater good, as Susan mentioned. And I've gone back and visited them many times and have found lots of great information. There's so many videos and tools that are on the Center for Resilient website and their YouTube channel. So our final slide, Susan, has your website, and then Dr. Wynter and Selfless Love Foundation and One Voice Impact. I know everyone was touched by Diamond's presentation, and the work that Dr. Wynter's doing with both Selfless Love and One Voice Impact is really great stuff. And they're always evolving and doing new things and have some really fun events too to get involved with. There's so much information on all those websites to visit at your own time and dig in a little deeper there. So I wanted to make sure you had that contact list. And yeah, I'm going to make sure I get my little replenished stack of thank you notes handy here. Wanted to open up for any questions that anyone has from our participants. Oh, this recording is going to be available following the conference. So thank you, Brittany, for reminding me to mention that. That is good to know. You could always go back and catch some more of that if you wanted to revisit that. And Brittany has provided a link in the chat too. So that's helpful. All right, don't forget the Build Your Bounce book. we have a couple copies. So, you know, if you visit the Devereux booth and mention you were in our session, you might get special privilege there. And thank you again, Diamond, Susan, Dr. Wynter, and thanks to everyone who joined us. And I'm thankful to the conference committee to make sure we were working perfectly for today. So there's my gratitude.
That's great. Good job, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate being able to share my story with all of you.